are going to listen to Mia Thyberg's presentation, and my name is Peter Christensen, and I'm the examiner of Mia, and I have been following her work through this semester. With us we have what we call a censor, Andreas. I think your name is live.
Indeed,
yeah. And you are invited not to evaluate Mia's work in the first place, but to evaluate the school. So through the master theses, there's a group of censors invited to actually evaluate the school, which is very good. I want to set the scene for you in the audience so that you'll read this presentation in the right way, because it's a very it's not an ordinary architecture project. Mia has a career as a painting artist and wanted to explore the three dimensions through color. I think that much too easily we let go of, we let projects pass that are sort of well behaved, which is drawing plans and sections, and there is a building. If you don't demand always for that, then they have an artistic nerve or any nerve at all. As long as it's well behaved, there's a tendency to let it pass. This, on the other hand, is not a very well behaved project in that sense. Mia approached me about half a year ago and asked me if I wanted to be the examiner of it. I'm working here as an artist. I'm an artist in residence, so to speak. And we have had a lot of very interesting discussions about the mix of fields between architecture and art. And that is one of the things that Mia is exploring. And in a way expanding the field of architecture in that sense. Through the work with color and color in space, so to speak. I think that it's necessary that we demand of a project that it has an artistic nerve, and I would say that this has a lot of artistic courage. By that, I leave the floor to you, Mia.
Thank you.
And just a technical help you in the site. I'm one of the teachers that is responsible for the art courses.
Architect.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I left the school after 1 year. Yeah, I'm working as an artist.
You're working as an architect in the architecture.
Yeah. I would say also that the jury contained of Monica William, that is professor in color, and Nils Ramberg is one of the best artists in town. So welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Introduction. And thank you all for coming today. As Peter was telling you, the subject is color in space. Of course, it's not only about color and not only about space, because when you work with these things, there are so many other aspects to think of, such as material, weight, sound, symbols, time, and layers. I will start here with a short introduction of the thesis, followed by a background I divided into the personal part and the part I call theory in practice. And then I will speak about the method and transdisciplinarity, as we are in where fields of art and architecture meet about the actual work as installations. I will weave in some of the research as we go. Yeah. Right. Future. About the future too. Right. There's the introduction we just got. So, yes, I have been working as a painting artist. This is one of the paintings from the last series called Sense 2, and it will appear later in the work. The painting, what does it mean? What is it about? It's about color, and to me, it's about color in space. Actually, I'm trained as a traditional painter, working with landscape portrait, all sort of figurative stuff you can imagine, and so to me, this is even though it's a non-figurative painting, it doesn't relate directly to a model or a still life. It could be anything. But is it not something in itself? And what would this something look like if we step into it? Oh, here's one of the still life. Right. This is the sort of place I lived in the recent time. What about theory? What theory is there about color and color in space? How do we perceive color? Of course, you all know that with no light, there is no color. And there is a lot of... Let's look at this video here about the... You recognize the Newton disk of Newton? It spins really fast, so the colors blend into each other and become all white. And how do we speak of color? How do we explain this hue of red here, for example? Well, there are a lot of theories about this, and many of them treat color as a two-dimensional phenomenon. When we speak of pigment, we speak of surfaces a lot in color science. Though there are some, here is some different color systems that exist. The top one is based on the actual wavelength and is used a lot in the digital world, and the bottom ones are the Mansell pigment-based system that starts to sort of have a shape or a form. So you can see it's irregular. It's well, based on what pigments we can reproduce. And this one, the MCS system, it's familiar to everybody in the design and architecture work. Is based upon how we perceive the different nuances. And what about physical models? This is a model of a color space. Color space is a term in color science. A color space is a three-dimensional coordinate system within which color experiences can be represented as points with unique positions. Also, these terms of inherent color and perceived color is something that I will relate to in the work. Inherent color is like this one over here has a certain hue, it has a certain blue that you can measure. That's its inherent color. And the perceived color, I mean, if we would look at this model in the daylight, you would perceive it in a certain way. You would perceive the colors. If we would look at it in a dark room lit with only candles, we would perceive it differently. These two separate terms. And right, two last terms, I promise you. And I already talked some about it. The non-figuration contra the figuration. You're sort of really there. Let's move on. So, where is this thesis going on? It's going on in the field of architecture and fine art. Architecture, why not? So from the architecture field, I bring in that material must be environmentally sustainable. The presentation must be understandable to public. An artist doesn't have to do that. Dealing with at least 3 dimensions. And from the field of fine art, I bring in challenging the creator, which is me, connecting to earlier works, such as the paintings I showed you, and dealing with color. Right. So about this field, this platform, here are some quotes from my report. Some architects speculate about what sort of environment the paintings represent, and as plans and sections. Is it an urban environment? Some mixture of civilization. This project is an attempt to build that environment. And as when you paint, the colors emphasize each other, made by contrast, and maybe that is applicable to transdisciplinary work. The contrast. So, trying too hard to understand each other, we will waste energy. I think instead of that, we should define a platform where we meet with our full differences, as we are. This is how I try my view of the platform of architecture. Right. So what have I actually made here? The installation of live color space. This is a quick picture from the installation. And right, to find a way of sort of skipping colors in the space, because I couldn't use the paint anymore. It would just be still 2-dimensional surfaces. So I must find a material, sort of stick in space to work with. I find the textile to sort of correspond with the palette. And also it was available on, as textile garbage from Emma's Björkbo. So it's all garbage recycled. Historically, what did we do with our own clothes? We made rugs, not only covering the floor, but also working as insulation in the house. We don't do that anymore. We burn our own clothes. The amount that we cannot give to Africa, which is a pretty big amount that we burn every year, every day, I would say, big amount. So I took this material, I tried to stiffen it, and epoxy was out of the question because of this. You remember these rules of architecture, it must be environmentally sustainable. So I elaborated with potato flour and created structures like this. They were too small. If I would want to work bigger, it would take a huge fan and a lot of heat to dry it all. So I just figured it must be an easier way. There must be an easier way. I hanged it as a way of sticking the color in the space. And that, I think this is okay, it's pretty fast to do, and you sort of experience the clothing, the materiality is still there, and all the history of the clothing is still there. And now we're starting to look at something that is almost non-figurative, aren't we? It's not articles of clothing, it's not a pair of trousers, really, it's starting to become something else. So there was an exhibition where I created a structure like this. I was going to explain to my helpers what we were going to build. It must be a space small enough to relate to as a space or a site at the exhibition. It was an old barn in the countryside, a temporary exhibition space. It must be big enough to move within. The structure must sort of relate to clothing and this sort of scale and social symbols. The clothing they must still be there, and it must deal with the invisible histories of within the fiber. And it ended up as early sketches about movement, but it ended up like this. An exhibition consisted of 7 paintings and these structures of hanging clumps of textile. I worked with the shape of a globe. Here's the plastic globe that I filled up with air, and then built up the like an eggshell shape, and then remove the plastic globe. So I think this calmness of the globe is good to work with, and also the calmness of the monochromatic, which means that the structure is sort of bluish only, and this one is reddish only. So there's a meeting between the sort of chaos and the subtleness of the globe. Okay. So let's move on to.
Take it easy. The pictures are so nice.
Can you talk about the mapping you've done? Because you mapped each clothing item, didn't you?
Yeah. Here's the mapping. It's identification number of the clothing, and it's a sort of it gives more depth to the history of them, and it's a way, I think, to treat the material with respect. Yeah, we can come back to it later. Here's an early plan of that globe. Also pictures from the last installation. So after that exhibition, I felt I must bring in some movement to the work because it was too. How can I bring in movement? So I started to work with this kind of stuff and arranged an after-work event on the subject of sort of chaotic color space. I put clothes inside the globe, trying to make napkins fly around in a fan inside the globe. I put people inside it, and what if I put a dancer inside it and a pile of clothes in each globe? They would move around in space, constantly changing the shape of the plastic globes as spaces. These are some of the ideas for the final installation that sort of came up from this after-work event where people were there for 2 hours and some musicians interpreting the happening. This is the globe that was filled up with air, so the balloons started dancing, and then it was emptied again, and there was a wall that displayed wall here that displayed it happening. Right. So come some ideas for the final installation. I decided to make it here at Chalmers because it's really handy. It doesn't cost anything. And there are big spaces available. Because of these big spaces, I questioned the crumpling up of the clothing. They don't need to be so small any longer because if you, whoops. Right, here comes one of the movement studies. Thinking about the staircases here at Chalmers. What can I do? I needed verticality, but then I just figured this big atrium, it's so big, I must do it there. And it's in the middle of everything. You can't hardly miss it, it's not limited. These are some early ideas of how to work with the height of the atrium. Here you can see a picture of it. You can, I could hang some sort of structure here and light it so it comes all the way up. But it could work only in the light and not so many people know. Some other ideas, early ideas. So why not just throw the clothes in the space? If I wanted to be in the space. So I did. And here is a reminder of the background again. I collected some more clothes from MS Björkvall, which had developed their business now. They found another firm in Poland, I think, who had taken a lot of the garbage, the clothes. So I had some problems in my time schedule because I couldn't have as much as I had before material, but it was announced happening, and this painting again had a role as a plan for the happening, a schedule, sort of a color schedule, and a sort of musical score. You can see here the document that I gave to my fantastic actresses that were given places in different windows on the top floor, on the fifth floor. And they were given this sort of musical score to follow during the time. This is what color and what rhythm to throw and where in the space. So, a short documentation. What happened with the clothes? They are in Africa now. Thanks for your attention.
We had to rush and finish somewhat, so that we can invite you to the artists saw the paintings as we used them, that is, as scores for the three-dimensional work, which is, I mean, there's not so far, and there's not such a long step from having plans and sections and thinking space. From that to having a painting and thinking three-dimensional space, is it? No. I would like to invite Andreas to have your comments on this.
Can I ask a few questions? Did you study architecture before? No, you trained as a painter.
Architect, no, I won before.
Yeah, because
I have a bachelor of architecture.
You have a bachelor of architecture. But you are a painter, you consider yourself a painter?
That's the thing. I would not call me anything else than people, so I suppose, yeah.
And how was it to work? Because for me, I really enjoy it as a painting project, you know, and I think that's where its strength is for me. And I wouldn't force it into architecture so much myself. But I find it really interesting that this happens within the school. And in a way, I'm curious about that dialogue between this kind of practice and the other practice that is going on. And I wonder if you can talk a bit about it. I mean, obviously you had a really amazing audience and everyone appreciated it. But your way of making and exploring and thinking, and even the language, is very different to what I see, what I've seen before. So you kind of, in a way, represent a different culture of doing things. And I find that really quite refreshing and interesting. And I wonder what the interplay is between your way of doing it, between an artistic practice and the architectural practice. And maybe you're in the same position, it seems. So I'd love to hear a bit more about how that works for you and also in the school.
I would say that I don't feel different since, I mean, it's not different compared to other schools in the world. So in that case, I don't feel different. But yes, here at Chalmers, there are interesting meetings. What was really the question? It's just.
No, I can represent from the school, but although that I'm not an architect, I've been in this environment for. My father was an architect, and I have been working here for 12 years. So I'm quite familiar with the architectural environment. I would say that the interplay between the two fields are in the fundamentals of the painting and the architectural language, which is the key word I would say is space. Mia is moving from the surface into space, and I think that has been very important for me to answer to this from the architectural side. As long as it's about color, space, light, and sound, as you experience from both the bags, falling in the stairs, which creates a sound experience, which for me is a fundamental of architecture. And as you said, light and color are very closely connected. And as long as you are exploring that, you could call it this or you could call it that. The common language is in the fundamentals, I would say. And by that I'm convinced that it's good.
I was kind of hoping that I guess, I mean, I can see, I don't know where to start, but maybe the last 10 years or more I've been working, my main body of work is to do with the fine artists. So me as an architect, and I've been collaborating quite intensely with the fine artists. And I think they're very different ways you do things, and they complement each other. And I feel I've learned a lot from working with an artist. And I'm hoping in a way what Chalmers can learn from you, your way of doing it. And I'm wondering what you've learned from Chalmers in a way. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I can probably more answer what I think Chalmers should take from your work. I don't think I can answer it the way around, because it feels like you're quite established in your practice and you know what you want to take. I feel something I've been missing a bit is, for example, a sense of experimentation so far, seeing other projects. And I think your work is extremely intuitive and experimental. And I wish that would be carried on into some of the other studios, into the other work. For example, using the flower with the stiffening, that's a material study in a way. And it comes about through kind of making find the fact that you make a public exhibition of your work as a way to kind of further it quite an interesting concept. And I think architects should do it more. It's nearly like testing your ideas in public before you draw conclusions. So the architect's world seems to be quite hermetic in a way, where it confronts the public. And I think in the last presentation there was an encouragement to publish the project, and nearly after it's completed. And I think it's quite nice that it becomes part of your working method to publicize, make what you do public as an event, and then continue as you work. I think there's something quite nice about a one-to-one intervention, which you have, which you've done again and again. And again, it's something I've missed so far. I know a lot of architecture schools that work with the idea of the one-to-one, not only as an object, but also as a situation, quite extensively.
Yeah, this room used to be used, didn't it?
Well, there used to be a climbing wall over there, and sort of a space where you build stuff one-to-one.
Yeah. Yeah, just fill in as an architect, working as a teacher of architecture in the school here, although not being a Swede, but coming from one of the neighboring countries. Of course, this is on the borderline of what we teach in architecture, but I think a project like this is so important to widen up the horizon for both us being teachers and the students as well, where you see this, you give us the possibility to explore the space between, under, on the other side, and also the time aspect in architecture and in space, both with colors and light. And I take this project maybe as the most experimental and interesting project this year among the students, and for many years actually, to cross these tendencies of manierism. It becomes very quickly what is that in English? Manier?
Manic.
No, that you just keep on the track that you always have been into, and you follow the stars highlighted, architects out there that are exhibited in the magazines and things like this. But going beyond that border, it's so important, and I really appreciate this project so much. I want to thank you for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would second it. I hope it comes through. I guess another thing where I think it needs architecture is what you said, the score, the way you kind of not think about the plan necessarily, but about it in motion. The whole discussion on movement, which, and I quite like your experimentations on movement. They're not immediately kind of, you can jump to conclusion what it means for architecture, but they're quite personal explorations on how you start to investigate movement. And in a way, with the scores, it starts to replace the plan. And I think that's quite an interesting move, which is, if it starts to be very architectural for me. Yeah, I guess my biggest question that remains is how isolated you were within the context of the school, because I think that they should really feed from each other. And I don't know if that happened. And that was kind of behind my first question.
Yeah.
When we're coming from someone who's works in a multidisciplinary way, who's kind of trying to cross these boundaries and open this quite enclosed world of the architect in a way, I think there's a real opportunity, and I would really love to encourage that there's more of it. And maybe it should be more like a residency scheme, or I don't know if it has to have an academic format. I don't know how useful it was for you to be a student here, or whether it would have been better to be invited and to take part in a different way, as a residency. It raises a lot of questions which I think are interesting for the school. I don't know if this has made you an architect in any way, or even interested in architecture. I don't know, I can't answer that.
My guess is that it made you much more aware of sensitive to the three dimensions. And by saying that, it's made me a better architect. And if you didn't do this step from 2 dimensions into 3, for me, it's fundamental. It's really, then you can talk about other things as well. But
you could also argue nature better sculpture.
Yeah,
Or,
but
I
we
mean,
already,
for me,
yeah.
just because it deals with the 3 dimensions doesn't mean it becomes architectural in a way. So I think the things you decided to you have these 3 things that you say that's what you take from the architecture world.
Could it be to sort of step out from the exhibition space to work with the public as the whole public, not only the visitors of the gallery?
But that's, I guess, for me, maybe that's my view. But for me, it's where these methods you start to explore, where you instrumentalize them to work on a more abstracted and probably bigger scale that goes beyond your body. And I think that's when it starts to become spatially interesting, where it really becomes a way of planning or suggesting a much larger kind of intervention. I think what I like about the art world is there's so many different practices, and the practice of working in the public realm is quite artistic anyway, and the discourse about what practice is much richer in the art world than in the architecture world. So that's why I think this is so nice.